Fabulous. Well, hello, welcome. My name's Allison Posey, and I'm so excited to get to be here today to host a conversation, one of the stories from the field. It's a balmy, hot summer day here in Boston. And for those of you who have joined the conversation, thank you for taking some time out of your summer to join us today. So this is a really exciting opportunity. We get questions sometimes like, what, UDL in higher ed? UDL in math? We have higher ed folks here today from Goodwin College, from several different disciplines with rigorous content goals, and they're going to describe some of the significant impact on learning that they've seen as a result of some of the design strategies that they've put into place informed from Universal Design for Learning. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction now because you can probably see their faces on video, and then we're going to be able to chat with each of them more and get to know them a little more once we get into the conversation. So Paula Dowd, Associate Professor and Chair, Department Head of Health and Natural Sciences. Hello. Do you want to say hi, or just say a quick hi so we make sure?
Hi, everyone.
Then the video will shift to you. Kieasha Goods, Assistant Professor of Math, Department of General Education.
Hello.
Randy Laist, Associate Professor of English, Department of General Education.
Hello.
Diana LaRocco, Associate Professor and Chair, Department of Social and Educational Sciences.
Hi, Allison, my fan.
and Danielle Wilkin, Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of Faculty.
Hi, everybody.
Awesome. So thank you all so much for being here today. Just very quickly, again, a few logistics before we begin. Please do feel free to participate in the conversation. We recognize that the means of presenting is fairly limited here. You have some audio options to listen live here. This whole session will be recorded so that if you do need to slow it down or pause or rewind or listen to something again, you'll have the opportunity to do that through the recording that will be made available. Please do feel free to use the text chat, so you can open the chat panel from the center of the top of your Zoom window. And if you could, please make sure that you select to all panelists and attendees so we can all see your comments. But if you do have something that you think might be distracting to other folks and shouldn't go out to everyone, feel free to just click to panelists, so just the panelists see it. Again, we really hope to encourage dialogue, to encourage hard questions, but if it's something that you think will be distracting to the larger community, please feel free to have more of a private conversation. And for those of you, I already saw someone in the chat box said they are a UDL Twitter person. So please do feel free to use a second means of communicating and sharing through Twitter. So you can hashtag CastPL, at @cast_UDL, and at Goodwin College. So please feel free to chat throughout it, or if you're listening to the recording weeks and weeks later, you can still contribute to the conversation. You can ask questions, you can share with us. And again, we hope this is just the start of the conversation. We recognize 1 hour goes really quickly and you're going to hear a lot. So again, just please reach out to us. And thank you to Mindy, who is, she's our CAST Director of Communications, and she's always really keeping up with Twitter. So she will get back to you, and she's monitoring the back channel now. So thank you, Mindy. Thank you to Allie Bird, who has set this whole thing up. All the logistics seem to be running smoothly because she is here. And I also want to thank our captioner, Cassie. So thank you so much, all of you. In the little, there's a box up across, and maybe the top or the bottom, where you can select to have captions. So please feel free to have the closed caption option as we go through the day today. So any other logistic questions or barriers? All of the participants, you all are force muted though, just because one of the biggest barriers was distracting sounds that would come. So we do apologize for that, but you all are force muted. So any other logistic pieces? Then let's get started. This is what you all came to hear. So Diana and Danielle, just to kick off with you all, someone asked the other day how long I had known you all. In some ways, I kind of feel like I've known Diana and Danielle through Diana my whole life. I don't know if I remember life not knowing you. But I'm hoping that you can just share a little bit about the journey that you've embarked on with UDL, because as folks get into your stories a little more, you've only been embedded in the process for about, just over a year. It really is remarkable. So, so I'm going to stop talking and let you share a little bit just to set the stage, the context of Goodwin and the project.
Great. So Goodwin is a private, non-for-profit, four-year institution. We award credentials at the collegiate certificate level, so it could be something as short as 18 credits up to about 45, 46 credits. We award associate degrees, we award bachelor's degrees, and in the last year we started 2 master's degrees programs. So we have a broad range of degrees and credentials that our students are pursuing. We are a career-focused open admission institution. So our students come to us with a high school diploma or a GED is the entry requirement, but that does not apply to all of our programs. That's just getting into the college. We have students who begin with us at the remedial level, and then we have students who, because we are a career-focused institution, will come to us with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree and are looking for a second career. So when you are a faculty member in one of our classrooms, it's really a very diverse group of students with very eclectic educational backgrounds. In last year, as you can see, we awarded certificates, associate degree, and bachelor's degrees. We've awarded more associate degrees than bachelor's degrees, but that is starting to flip for us. So that's a little bit about who we are. And in terms of degrees, we have everything from early childhood to bachelor's in nursing, respiratory therapy, criminal justice, manufacturing, and then we have an associate's degree in general studies and a bachelor's degree in professional studies. So it's really a broad range of degrees, a broad range of interests, and a very eclectic group of students.
Fabulous. And I should also just note that there has been a resource document that is available to you all that has links to all of our presenters, a Padlet that Goodwin's team has put together. And if you miss some of those details, they're available for you as part of the summary of the content that's available in this resource document. So Mindy posted that in the chat box. And so feel free to know that that's there and available for you all. And there is a lot of information that you're going to get. If at any point you have questions that you want to ask folks, please pause us by asking questions. So thank you, Danielle.
Another thing that's important to note about our students is, as you can see, we have about a 50% mix of minority students. They're often older students. Our average age is 30. The vast majority of our students receive financial aid, and many of them are coming to us part-time. School is not their only responsibility. Many of our students are balancing full-time employment, caring for families. That might be a younger child, that might be an adult. And so they are balancing a number of responsibilities and challenges, and these can be some of the barriers that they have to overcome to be successful in school, in addition to all the challenges in the classroom itself.
Fabulous. Again, just sort of thinking about variability and empathizing, knowing where your learners come from.
And to that point, when we talk to our faculty about diversity, when we thought about how do we support our students and we were trying to think about our student experience, we looked at it. We have a number of students with 504 plans. We have a number of students with financial challenges. As I mentioned before, students who are caring for somebody beyond themselves, work, veterans, first generation. Many of our students are first generation. All their life experience, and that could be both a positive and a negative in terms of, as I said, some of our students are coming to us with a lot of work experience and are professionals and are looking for a second career. And so when we started to have conversations about how do we support our students, they often come down to picking one of these particular boxes and saying we're going to support that group of students in that particular way. And we quickly realized as we had those conversations that that would be overwhelming and not a successful approach to supporting our students. And that was really one of the beginning conversations, is when you look at this chart, we need a way of supporting our students that supports all of our students where they are, regardless of their background, and picking something that looked at all of these different aspects and variability within our students.
Right. How would you ever have an average veteran that you're designing for or planning for? I would love to know what that might look like. Does that even exist? I think we know it doesn't. But
Exactly.
there's a nice question here too. Just how are you defining the minority, 51% minority? Can you maybe expand on that a little bit?
Sure. In our student population, we have about over 25% who are Hispanic. And then we have a large number of African American students, and then other different minorities, looking at the IPEDS report, your typical IPEDS calculations.
Great, great. Thank you. Excellent. So wide range of variability. How do we address that?
Correct. We have a large group of full-time faculty. Of note, our faculty teach 3 semesters a year, so they do not have summers off. They typically have loads of 5 courses per semester. However, I should say often they do have release for other opportunities and projects. We do not have a tenure system. We do have a low faculty to student ratio, and our median class size is 17. I will mention that I was with a group of faculty yesterday, and a faculty member was talking about a class of 45, and the other faculty and member in the room went, wow, that's a big class. So we do have small classes that support our students.
But again, like the reality, so for the viewers, the reality of 3 full semesters per year, that's
Correct.
intense. So we were there just a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
They're in full session right now. So that summer break, that's so important for really being able to evaluate your syllabus and really think about your courses, is not there. So they're really designing as they're teaching throughout the entire year. It's really remarkable.
Yes, and I think one of the important things to consider as we're having a conversation about what our project is and the professional development program that we've developed for our faculty, it is job-embedded professional development. So as you pointed out, as they're doing this work, they're implementing it as they go, and which is why we really focused on, and I will let our faculty and Diana speak to this more directly, but we really focused on small changes that could be implemented as they go and making assessments on those changes as they apply them in the moment.
Fabulous. Yeah, thank you. And there are some comments here just thinking about broadening the definition of variability. Of course, also thinking about background experiences with trauma or early childhood experiences, negative experiences in the classroom. By the time your learners get to you, they've had decades of experiences in the classrooms that may or may not have impacted their learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Other thoughts or questions to that? It does feel overwhelming. Education is a really phenomenal profession.
All right, Diana, I'll let you talk about the project goals.
Okay, so we were very fortunate to get a Davis grant through the Davis Foundation in Maine, and we, in that grant, designed a program of professional learning for faculty that really is grounded in job-embedded professional learning. We took what we know from K through 12 and what we know works in terms of what I'm going to call dosage, how much PD should we give faculty, how long, and so forth and so on. And we really did that to the point of developing a grant which was funded. So our goals were to create an environment really in which faculty can learn about how to implement UDL in their classrooms. We also, with this project, are focused on creating essentially a local model of professional development, because we know through professional development that every context is different. So we created a model that would be good for Goodwin. And then down the road, and as we move forward, we're really interested, and I can bring a couple examples in as I talk more about the project, of increasing student engagement and mastery of learning outcomes. And certainly the faculty that are going to talk in a minute will be able to share how they perceive students are currently embracing this slightly different way, tweaks that were done to classroom teaching. And I think that will really enlighten about what the project has been. So again, what I said about the project, it's from the Davis Foundation. We have designed it so faculty are participating in 8 face-to-face 3-hour workshops. Faculty had to apply to participate. Allison, you can go forward one more slide. I think
there we go.
Helpful.
Whoop.
No, I guess, okay.
There it is.
There's the slide. One more. There we go. So this gives you a sense of what this slide particularly highlights, the sense of what it is, what we designed. So 8 face-to-face 3-hour workshops provided over 7 months. Faculty had to apply to participate. So obviously you're going to get those early adopters, people who really are interested. The couple of frameworks we used in terms of how we designed this, we really looked at, as I said before, the evidence from K-12 on what constitutes good professional development, and we designed it that way, applying adult learning principles. We also looked at work by, for those that care, Hall and Horde and their concern-based adoption model, and have used that as the framework, really looking at what are faculty's concerns, and then how do we address those concerns. So faculty, the cool thing I think is the way we structured the grant is we are doing a cohort model. So as Danielle mentioned earlier, we had cohort 1 who finished, and then yesterday cohort 2 finished. So to date we have 28 faculty members who have completed this long-term job-embedded professional learning.
And Diana, I just want to add one thing to that. When you say that the faculty did apply, I just want to make note that we did not cherry pick faculty. So it was, when we looked at starting a cohort, it was more about making sure that we had diversity of faculty in terms of experience. You know, our first cohort, we had 1 faculty member who was brand new, and we had another faculty member who had 15 years of teaching experience. We had diversity in terms of content areas. So they did apply, and it is voluntary, but it was not a situation where we said, okay, we're going to take who we deem are our best 15 faculty members who are our strongest, and put them into this process. And I think that's important to note, because it sometimes there's a perception that we just took our strongest and made them stronger, and that's not how the process actually worked.
Yeah, and to that point, Danielle, also this idea that we invited both full-time faculty members and adjuncts. So in each cohort, we've had full-time faculty members and adjuncts. And I think that's also part of what has strengthened the process. The grant provided stipends for faculty, so at the end of their journey, they did receive $1,200 for their time. And again, looking at what constitutes good professional learning, we acknowledge that faculty were giving time, as Allison mentioned before, and Danielle mentioned, these individuals are working 3 full 15-week semesters annually, teaching anywhere from 4 to 5 courses depending on their particular position and whether they coordinate curriculum or not. So this is no easy feat to agree to participate in this type of training.
And may have been part of what made it job embedded. So there's a question about, could you just elaborate a little bit more on how you define job embedded?
Sure. Absolutely. So job embedded really refers to this notion that the professional learning that you're going to participate in connects directly to the work that you do day to day. And in this case, clearly it does, because everything was about teaching and learning. We started the process with having people look at situational factors a la Think and Think's framework, if people are familiar with that. And then moving from situational factors. So I saw some of the chat around how are we defining and so forth and so on. And Danielle mentioned iPads, but certainly our students, some of them would come into the trauma group as children, or have children, their own children who experience trauma, or veterans who experience trauma, and so forth and so on. So that broad diversity. And so really looking at, you have this group of students in your class, what are the factors that they're bringing to class, and then moving from there. The piece of the professional learning that's really important to understand as well is, while people were learning new information about universal design for learning, we asked them to make small changes to their courses, whatever those changes were. So the job embedded piece comes in again with, I'm working, I'm learning this skill while I'm working, and I have to apply it. So every other session was a concrete application, and that's what people are going to share, is some of the projects that they worked on during the time of the professional learning, and how that continues to inform who they are and what they're doing with their teaching. Okay.
Very exciting. And I know none of the examples that we have today are online courses, but there was a question, are there online courses offered at Goodwin?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And pretty much, I would say, I'm trying to think, most of the people that have been through the project to this date, the 28 faculty, I would say everybody at one time or another is teaching an online course. So you might have a faculty load of three online and 2 on ground, or in any. So yes, we offer both online and on ground. And one of the struggles for faculty as they've moved through the process is, okay, I can figure out how to do this on ground, but now I'm struggling with, how do I do it online? And that's been absolutely phenomenal to see some of the changes that people have made to their teaching and how they present information. So,
well, and also too, a challenge for the folks watching is you'll be listening to these stories, and some of the pieces you'll relate to and others you're not going to. And the challenge is, how can you make it transfer? How can you make it so it has a piece of meaning for you? And that certainly is what we hope starts to happen. Did I just go backwards again?
I think we're ready to move into Paula's. I think unless somebody has other questions about, we talked about the project goals and the expectations. And so I think if Paula is ready and you're ready, Allison, I think we can go into our first example.
Yeah, I think let's do that. And I, again, want to remind you that you have this resource document that has, again, a lot of this detail broken out, and you'll hear the 3 different stories. This is being recorded, so again, you can have access to that later. And then just a question we don't need to answer right off the bat, but there is a quick one too about what percentage of students have accommodation plans as disclosing with a disability. So at some point we'll make sure to answer that as well. So great. So now that you hear the big scope of what the project is, you've got kind of a picture of what Goodwin is like. And again, I hope you could start to do this with all of your institutes of higher ed. Let's jump into thinking about public health, Public Health 110, in fact. Paula, thank you so much for being here with us today. And let me know, yes, I guess go ahead and start telling your story.
Okay, so thank you, Allison. I think for me to start, I want to give you a little bit of a background on how I got into the journey of UDL, because I've been in higher ed for about 14 years, but most of my career has been in laboratory medicine, specifically in anatomic pathology, which for those of you who don't know is the study of diseases and tissue. So I progressed from being a bench tech to a laboratory administrator, and with that, I gained the skills of budgets and scheduling and evaluations and staffing. But when I came to higher ed, I really had no training in pedagogy. So I started here at Goodwin as an adjunct, and then became a program director of medical assisting, and then program director for health science. And I knew I wanted to continue in higher ed, especially here at Goodwin, because they've become so much of a family for me. So I decided to go back to school and get my doctoral degree. And when it was time for me to do my dissertation, I'm very interested in faculty. I chose, and because Goodwin has, we rely so heavily on adjuncts, I chose the topic of looking at adjunct science faculty's reports on instructional strategies that they use to promote student learning. So the next step was, of course, to apply and hopefully get accepted, and I was into the first UDL cohort. So I chose Introduction to Public Health as the course that I was going to UDLize, because public health is our bachelor's degree is relatively new to the college. And I thought it was a really great way to excite students into the world of public health. But when I was looking at the syllabus, I noticed that the student learning outcomes, first of all, there were too many, and they were not measurable, and they seemed kind of random. So the first thing I did was revise the course student learning outcomes to align with CEEF, because our program, CEEF does not require bachelor degree programs to be accredited, but we are going to hopefully start that process soon. So in doing that, I redid the student learning outcomes. So not only were they aligned with CEEF, but they were also measurable. And by measurable, I mean they were meaningful as well. So that was my first project for Intro to Public Health.
I just want to pause and give a wow for that because that really is remarkable to really make sure that you're sustaining a level of rigor, you're sustaining a level of relevancy, but you're also ensuring that it's objective and so that you're able to measure it. It's not this vague amorphous thing that you're just, sort of passing along to students, but that students then really have it concretized for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is the course where we want to get them excited so that they pursue this degree in public health. Because, if you think about it, public health is all around us. And prior to just starting with the student learning outcomes, because there were so many and the assessments to those learning outcomes weren't really meaningful, we were losing that excitement piece.
Yeah, the why is just if you're juggling all this stuff and you hop into this course and it doesn't seem to make any sense. Yeah, that seems to make a lot of sense. And just to again highlight how fabulous that, as Diana mentioned, you were looking for dosage, and that was a tweak that was very concrete and probably, hopefully, felt manageable with the load that you had. How long would you say that process took you? I don't know if you can put a timestamp on it.
When I landed here, because I had to think about what I wanted to do and where a good stepping off point would be, it didn't take long. It took maybe a few hours.
Excellent.
So it was a meaningful project, but it was for me measurable as well.
Fabulous.
Okay, so the second project was a little bit bigger. In going through the PowerPoint slides, I noticed that there were 80-90 per chapter. There's 15 chapters. Yeah, so I mean, the lecture was just dumping content. And so I went through the PowerPoints and I scaled it back to 25 slides per chapter. And again, I designed these PowerPoints to match the student learning outcomes with CEEF in mind. And by decreasing the number of PowerPoints, I was able to incorporate active learning in the classroom. With 90 PowerPoint slides, 2 hours and 50 minutes of lecture time, there's just no way to stop, pause, reflect, test, are they getting the content? So it's been remarkable, and I was able to include such activities as gallery walks. We just did a gallery walk last week, and the students love it. And it's just putting concepts on these big Post-it notes and having the students go around and demonstrate that they know what the concept means to them, and they can draw it, they can write it, they can make a table. And at the end, the students go around the room and they take pictures and they use it as a reference when they are studying for their exams. So that has been very exciting to do in the classroom.
And so it almost seems like the goal of your lectures stopped being about dumping content, but really became much more about a learning process, and that recognized, again, the variability and that the design mattered.
And it really engages the student because they'll go around the room with the gallery walks with each other, and they'll see something on a Post-it note and say, I don't think that's quite right. I think what you're trying to say is this. So it's very interactive.
So you get a heat check as well as to the understanding that's going on, and if you need to address anything pretty quickly in there.
Exactly, yeah.
Fabulous. I just love the image on this one.
My ice cream cone. So the last project that I did, this is an introductory course, and they had originally a paper assignment at the end, the last week to hand in. And there was no feedback. So I took this paper and I broke it into 3 different sections, mandatory dates for each section. They would hand it to me. I would give them feedback so that they would know for the next section what worked, what didn't. So this was in real time. I would give them the feedback within a week. I also modified the final exam, and I think I was telling this to our board of trustees. It used to be all multiple choice exams, and now I do open-ended questions. And, you know, tell me you know this by, again, writing it, drawing it, doing a chart, a table, whatever works for them. And I gave an exam last week, and I had the student hand in the exam for me, and she said, you know, I was stuck on this question. I was stuck on this question. I closed my eyes, I took a breath, and then I remembered the visual that you attached to this, and she drew it, and she was spot on.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Interesting. Very interesting. And thinking about, too, I guess I want to just press on this a little bit, that, all right, so by removing slides from your PowerPoint, by removing multiple choice questions, are you making it easier?
Absolutely not. I think I'm making it more reflective. The rigor, as a matter of fact, the rigor, I believe, has gone up a little bit because they have to understand and connect the concepts rather than just picking A, B, C, or D. So no, as a matter of fact, after the first exam last week, all of the students said this was probably one of the harder exams I've taken, and yet when I graded them, everybody got a B or better. So I'm very cognizant to make sure that I don't water down the rigor.
You're just being more purposeful and designing towards it. So, you know, and thinking about, again, just to go back to your second example of the gallery walks, that it's just really giving another way for processing the high level information.
Exactly.
Expressing it. So in terms of connecting it to UDL, was there a particular checkpoint or guideline that you found yourself really going towards?
I'm drawn to action and expression because I think that, again, you know, I'm old school. I went to college with the chalk and talk, with just the lecture and the professor's back to me, just writing on the board. So I think that giving students multiple means to express that they know the material is key for me.
Fabulous. Thank you. So please continue. There have been some great comments in the chat box. Please continue to ask questions, add comments, and we're going to jump to math. And I have to say, I mean, we've been in a number of places. I was in a meeting just this morning where they say, oh, math, can't use UDL with math. So Kieasha, thank you so much for being here today. And I'm really very much looking forward to you telling this story of math and higher ed.
Thank you. Math and higher ed. Yes, UDL works well with math and higher ed. Can you hear me, y'all? So I'm just really excited. Thanks to Allison and her presentation the first day at our college was the reason why I actually decided to be a part of UDL. She brought back great memories of school and how transformative school was when it was more engaging. So thank you for that, Allison. So Math 135, at our school we have college-based mathematics, so it's Math 135, which covers all of our people that are going to CNC programs, business, and things of that nature. We have another math which is called Math 125, which covers our health sciences and people going into health sciences and nursing. So I was very aggressive with my approach. So I did both at the same time, but I focused mainly on my favorite one, which was Math 135. So the first thing that I did was I changed the syllabus. So I included pictures of the calculator, the pie chart for grading schema, and bulleted expectations. So the student learn outcomes, I put them in bullets and decrease the amount of information inside the student learning outcomes. So that was the first thing I did. So small changes made the big changes. So less questions about what do I need to do as a student, less questions of what kind of calculator should I buy, how much should my calculator cost, less questioning about how the breakdown of the class is going to be for them. So the pie chart really helped with understanding how they were going to be graded. So that was my first part of my project. So being able to put pictures with the words, so if they skim through the syllabus, they can actually see pictures and not really worry about and focus so hard on the words, especially when you have students that really can't read all of that information. So it's very helpful.
And that's one of my first, I mean, I think of the first day of class, it's getting that wordy syllabus and then thinking I have all this stuff to go and get. And right there, just the affective, emotional piece to welcoming and starting the class, I imagine that set the tone in a slightly different way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And I do, I love just to highlight again that comment that then you get fewer questions and the questions you get tend to be of higher level. So by making the access more accessible, it's in fact deepening, again, kind of that rigor and that component. Excellent, thank you.
All right. So my second project, I really have a thing about exams. I understand test anxiety. I have it as well. I tell my students it's not just them, it goes around the board. So the big barrier was that our exams are typically in math. You have 25, 40, 50 questions, and then we just have them doing the same question or same style of question over and over again to prove that they know it. So I went back to some of the stuff that I learned back in other schools, which is performance-based testing. So what I did was I revised all my final exams and my tests to be performance-based. So basically I give them a real-world scenario. And then they can choose which type of question that they're going to prove to me that they can demonstrate their learning. So it was a lot to take on. So I've actually changed. I evolved from that a little bit. However, when they get to the final exam, what happens is as you grow, they also have a portfolio. So as they grow inside the math class, they actually explain to me how they have grown. And that final exam is really an example of what do I really know and what can I show you? So they choose problems that they actually know how to do and then choose one that they've been working on to show me that they have grown in that particular area. So for example, your handicap, put that in quotes, has always been geometry. So as you're working through the course, when you get to the final exam, you choose that one question that has geometry as the one that shows me that you have progressed in your learning of geometry in addition to the ones that you know. So a lot to work with. I personalize each exam when they do a reassessment. So they're allowed to do a reassessment on each exam only one time. So of course it's still considered college.
How do you keep up with that?
Yeah, I do. It's a lot. So I tell students, please bear with me. So I give them a week to kind of adjust. So in addition to that is what I give them is a self-assessment. So they have to, in order to get a reassessment, you have to do a self-assessment. And then they'll take that information and go to either a tutor or come back to me and work on that self-assessment on that particular areas that they need to work on. And then after that, of course, I settled into, I was originally pre-K to 12 certified. So when I got here, I kind of settled into what students expected a professor to be, which was not my style, but I did. I settled into it. So when UDL came on board, I was like, yes, I can be who I like to be. So what I did was I went back to adding ACE questions, which is from Connected Math, which is application questions, challenge questions, and extension questions. So actually pulling out from them, not just that I have to be able to add, but can I add decimals, and why do I need to add decimals? Because I need you to balance your checking account. Why do I need to learn these things? So being able to see math in action. So application, challenge, and extension questions were the ACE questions. So after we actually do a lesson, the next day would be the ACE questions. So give them an opportunity to work them by themselves, and then give them a chance to open it up to the classmates and then work it. And then we'll talk about our answer and how to approach those strategy. And the last part of that was I liked Padlet. Padlet was my best friend. So I used Padlet to create online bulletin boards for students to share ideas and their resources.
And so also, I mean, what's really striking me, and I'm just thinking about, putting UDL verbiage to some of this is really, we kind of talked about the access level and thinking about representations. When you started to get to this level, it really seemed to be deeply about engagement. I mean, really trying to build in that authentic, relevant examples for them, and then kind of shifting over and thinking about, the highest level of representation is about comprehension and how those simpler problems were kind of highlighting the processes, so that then when you got to these more challenging ACE kind of assignments, you're able to then make that transfer a little bit more successfully. I'm wondering if you might even have data around student learning when you started. I know you said you just started to provide this, so maybe you don't have necessarily a before and an after to know, is the level of student understanding elevating? Again, it was in the theme of kind of going after that high level, deep, rigorous understanding.
Yes, I do have data because this has been like, this is like the second, third, fourth cycle for me, because I did it as soon as I could. So every class, I even did it with my summer bridge class. So my summer bridge class was the first class that was completely submerged last year. So everything that I did inside our UDL workshops, I actually brought to the classroom right away. So they were really good. They had no problem with it. They adjusted very quickly. I think students really, really like it because they see their growth in the end. So it is a lot of work on my part, but you really see the growth, and I like the growth that you see in the student. So a student that used to say, I couldn't do math before, are now saying, not necessarily that I love it, but I got it. I understand it. I see where it's important for me to know this. I see where it applies in real world. I've even had emails from students that said, hey, I'm really glad that you showed me this, because now at my job, this was the first time I ever realized they were actually saying this at my job. And I'm like, wow, I know how to do that now because I have Professor Good. So knowing that they're actually now putting it into play, and now they're actually aware and able to hear those words. So for example, a pie chart. Some people are never paying attention to, oh, there was a pie chart in the report that we got at work. So being able to now to utilize that information and see it through is a biggest piece that I love. And then I had one student that just beautiful. She had an accommodation the whole way through. So this was just last semester. She had accommodation all the way through, including in developmental math. So she ended up in my class. She always had to take the reassessment because she failed the test the first time around, all the time. So she would always take the reassessment, but on the reassessments, you could see that she was doing really well. So what happened from her reassessments was I redesigned the way I did her reassessments. I did the little piece where I said, show work, what formula did you choose, and then show me how you put it into your calculator. So I asked her, did that help her? And she said yes, so I implemented it for all my classes. So now all my classes is show work, draw a diagram, label your diagram. So I actually put those little pieces in for them to look at. So when she did her portfolio, inside her portfolio, part of what I asked them to do is to write a little small personal statement. So in her personal statement, she had mentioned her goal, because I do give them goals. So we do develop SMART goals at the beginning. She talked about her SMART goal, which was to get a B in class in math, because she never had a good grade in math before in her life. So she wanted this particular grade. And at that point, she was maintaining that B average without a problem. So in her personal statement, she mentioned that she was really worried about the final exam. She was hoping that the strategies that she learned was going to help her through the final exam so that she can pass the course. Because based on her performance in class, that every time she get a chance to do it, she made better grades on the reassessment. And with the final exam, there is no reassessment. So that was her worry. Well, needless to say, she basically blew that exam out of the water, highest score in the class, and she ended the semester with like an 86. Wow. Best thing that ever happened. I was actually sitting in the classroom crying. I was running, jumping up and down because this is a student that never expected to pass math ever. So UDL was her saving grace, basically.
And a lot of the mastery-oriented feedback that you're giving them, the process along the way and valuing that seems to be really remarkable. And there are some questions here. I don't know how much of this you might want to share. We could, continue to break out or build out the links in the Google Doc, but just seeing more examples about, what are the performance-based problems with choice of questions that students were allowed to respond to. So again, what we'll do, so for the participants listening, what we'll do is we'll look at the resource document after this webinar and see if there are additional artifacts or links to additional information that you may want. Then we're more than happy to try to, again, continue the conversation. So there is yet a third project.
Right. So this one's actually a little mislabeled. It says 135, but I have used it in 135 as well because, of course, math cuts across all walks of life. So this project was really geared towards my Math 125, which was health sciences and nursing profession. So I created a gallery walk, and this was a piece that I gave to them prior to them taking their first performance test. So it was a gallery walk. I created it informatively, and then I used Visme to create the infographic. And so it was really about being able to see how math actually applies to their topic. So the capillaries, so how does math apply to capillaries and different pieces of science as well. So normally I get that question of, why are you bringing a science question into the math class? And I'm like, because they go hand in hand. So this was an ability for them to actually see real world application to why we do the math that we do. And so once they got through with their gallery walk, they uploaded the answers to Nearpod, and once again, a place for them to share information and see each other's information, and then once again discuss what they had as far as answers. Really
Super
cool.
exciting. And I just wanted, there was a comment that I think, you know, again, just really is resonating with the story, just that you're really illustrating what's necessary for some, but good for all, when you show this, you're thinking about that one student and how you tried a strategy, got feedback to see if what you were doing was working. So again, that kind of that iterative process, I think is so important for us to think about as educators and really ask students, is this working or is this not working? And then adjusting that design. So thank you again. Continue to feel free to ask questions to Kieasha. And just in the interest of time, I want to make sure that I introduce Randy. So hello, Randy. And
hello, everybody. Hello.
So to jump from health science to math, now to English.
We're covering it all.
Yes.
Although in a lot of cases, the challenges are similar across disciplines. Here at Goodwin College, as Danielle and Diana were mentioning, we have students coming into that introductory English class, English 101, with a broad range of different skills. Some have taken college level writing classes before, some haven't taken any writing classes in decades. There's English, you know, as a second language students, and you know, this very mixed bag of students, and they all need to come out of the class with a, you know, a healthy degree of skills and being able to express themselves in writing. For me, the thing that resonated the most with UDL in terms of trying to apply it to my writing students was the matter of making it engaging, making it meaningful, trying to identify multiple means of engaging students. Students always come into a writing class very skeptical. They're concerned they don't know how to write, or writing doesn't connect with them, or they don't feel like writers. So getting them involved on a basic level is very important to me, and I think UDL gave me some tools for doing that. One of the major curricular innovations that we employed as a result of this conversation was basically rehauling the entire structure of English 101. In the previous iteration, students had written a series of different kinds of papers in different genres. They would do a research paper and a persuasion paper and a memoir essay, and they would all be basically one and done assignments where a student would just submit it, get a grade, and then go on to the next assignment. But one of the things we wanted to do was to figure out ways to engage students, to really recruit their interest and to give them individual choice, to use some UDL phrases that would allow them to really dig their teeth into a topic that was important to them and meaningful to them. So in the first couple of weeks of class, we have a conversation about what do you want to write about? What is important to you? What do you want to do research on? And students, we encourage them to identify, you know, quirky topics, you know, different kinds of topics that go like, you know, outside of the range of what they might think of as typical academic writing topics. But then we spend the rest of the semester bringing it back and showing them that no matter what topic you start off with, there's an important conversation to be had. There's real research that you can do around these specific topics. So the first project for me in designing this English 101 class around UDL principles was to make the center point of the whole class be these individualized student writing processes. So after they identify a topic, and then they spend the rest of the semester writing the same kinds of writing, but it's all connected because it all is sequenced in a way that takes them from personal reflections on their topic to doing research on their topic to doing persuasive style writing on their topic. And the feedback from students is that it makes it make more sense, that they're learning about something that they care about, but also all of the assignments are leading somewhere. They're all, each one builds on the next, so that, you know, thinking about their personal connection with their topic inspires how they conduct research about their topic, and that research informs the persuasive topic, the persuasive thesis that they wind up arriving at. So that's been a big success and a major change in the way the whole class is organized.
And in terms of your feeling, again, to push on that rigor, how do you feel the quality of the writing maybe compared before and after the design choices?
Well, it makes a huge difference because of this element of engagement. When students have an authentic relationship to their topic and they really are writing about something that they care about, even if the topic itself might strike some observers as frivolous or unacademic, once they start to dig in and they start to read more about their topic and their ideas change and evolve about their topic, they really get involved in not just authentic writing experiences, but really authentic learning experiences where they're actually evaluating their own opinions and changing their attitudes and in response to the kind of feedback they're getting from me and from their classmates and from the research that they're doing.
Super exciting.
You want me to talk about the project number 2? So project number 1 was about kind of the design of the whole class, but then we also did some other.
It wasn't really a tweak. We'll give you that.
Okay, yeah, no, it wasn't a tweak. It was a major change. But the other ones are just sort of different projects that we did kind of along the way. Again, really highlighting that theme of engagement. One of the projects that we did was instead of writing a research paper, the students wrote research papers, but the end product was not the paper itself. It was a video lecture where the students worked in teams to collaborate to generate their ideas, then to develop their ideas into an outline, and then to develop a PowerPoint presentation around their outline, then to script that presentation out into an essay, and then finally to record the finished product verbally and have it accompanied with the PowerPoint, so it's kind of like a video lecture, and then take that video lecture and post it to social media sites so they can share it with the world. The idea was that a lot of times students don't see the point of writing because they're doing all this work, putting into doing a research paper, and then it gets read, it gets graded, and it gets thrown out, and that's the end of it. But this creating an artifact that they could takes on a life of its own in social media environment makes the whole process much more tangible and meaningful, in addition to helping engage students by fostering and collaborating a sense of community. This is also a way of engaging multiple means of encouraging students to use multiple means of action and expression, because obviously instead of just doing the paper, they're also doing all this other stuff as well. And at each stage in this process, from brainstorming their ideas to doing the PowerPoint to writing the essay to recording it, they're getting mastery-oriented feedback as they go along. And so by the time they're done, they've produced a professional grade video lecture.
So did you feel like you had to become accomplished at assessing, for example, a PowerPoint versus the actual content?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, one of the questions about assessment was like, how are we going to grade this PowerPoint? We actually turned that into a conversation that we had in class, asking them about what makes an effective PowerPoint, what are some of the things that you want to see in a PowerPoint, and they were even just in a video lecture of any kind, and they were able to work together as a whole class to articulate what they thought would be the criteria that they should be aiming for as they put together that assignment. So they really took ownership of the assessment aspect of the project as well.
And given how relevant it was, it makes sense that then they would care about that. So in the interest of time, if you could please share project.
Sure. And so finally, another kind of project that we did along the way, again, in the interest of trying to engage the students, trying to recruit their interest and make them feel like they're doing something meaningful with the time that they invest in their writing process, we collaborated with the college's alumni leadership committee to identify Goodwin College alumni who had remarkable stories, and then we assigned teams of English 101 students to these alumni to interview them, to find out about their stories, to get some pictures from them about things that they've done, and then to develop that into an alumni profile for the newsletter that goes out to hundreds of people a couple times a year. And so this was an opportunity for English 101 students coming from a wide range of different backgrounds in terms of their competence and fluency as writers, to start off from wherever they were and then have a very specific end goal, which is to create a professional grade article for publication about someone that, and that was an interesting thing too, about get to know someone that had been through the same things they've been through, who graduated from, in some cases, the same program that they graduated from, who's not too much further down the road than they are themselves, and to kind of get to know these people, think about what makes them tick, think about what makes them successful, and translate those ideas into a profile style essay that then got published in these news articles, as you can see illustrated here on the slideshow.
And quite something also to potentially show future employers.
Yeah, well, sure. These are, I mean, the idea is that they're not just creating academic pieces of writing, for the class. They're trying to create a portfolio that they can then, take with them after they graduate to demonstrate all of the fantastic work that they've been doing here at Goodwin College.
And you said a phrase that I just want to pull out because it was really well said, just the time they invest. And so students are investing time in your classes at Goodwin, and this is to all of you, and really thinking about what they invest, not ending up, as you were saying, as an essay in the trash can, but it actually turns into something that builds on something they care about, that's meaningful to them, that contributes to the community as a whole, is really going above and beyond compliance and checking it off for the sake of a grade.
Well, yeah, that sense of investment is very crucial. I think it's obviously always important in education, but it has an extra edge here at Goodwin College, where students really are investing not just their time, but their money, basically their lives into these programs. They come to our classes sometimes after a day of working multiple shifts. You want to make sure that you're doing something that is resonating with them and makes it worthwhile to them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the background of all these projects, is we want them to feel like they're actually using their time to do something meaningful and concrete with an actual outcome that they can relate to and appreciate.
So Allison, really quickly, one of the we've come up with 3 R's, and it's relevance, rigor, and retention. And we can see that we have a pilot project going on, and we can see that we have 100% retention in a group of students that have never been retained before. And that would be a whole other conversation down the road. Happy to share.
This is just the first of this conversation. And I guess I'll just, as you all are thinking of some questions that you may want to ask in just the last few remaining minutes, but Goodwin is actually hosting their first inaugural UDL conference. So this would be an amazing place to be able to be part of this conversation, to bring your work, your pain points, your questions, and really get to meet this phenomenal cohort 1, cohort 2, and just community that really, where you will start to see and hear UDL in the subtle language that's happening and the way that folks are talking and sharing and giving feedback to each other, that really is contagious. It really is very remarkable. So please, do you want to add to this, Diana, any details?
Yeah, I want to say we have the call for proposals open, and if people have ideas they want to share, we truly invite you. We want you to be here. We're a teeny little college in Connecticut. It'll be fall. It'll be cool. And we should have a really good time. And I just hope, people will submit proposals, because we want it to be as inclusive as possible. Just please, if you've got work you're doing, please share. We're really excited. It's really a big step. And as Allison said in the beginning of this webinar, we've really only been at this. We started last May. The first cohort was launched last May 2017. And with Allison's help, we launched that cohort. And second cohort just finished. And next January, we'll start the third. We're going to take a little break in between. And then launch the third one next year, and hopefully we'll get more funding. So we're really excited.
I don't think anyone sleeps at Goodwin. Just hearing what these tweets are and this dosage is at quite a high level. And just to know from CAST, we have a couple exciting things just to share with you. We have, this is more in the K-12 sphere, but we have had some higher ed folks attend and find value, again, because UDL is about the mindset. It's not just about a specific discipline in a specific moment. It's the mindset. So we have a conference where you can see UDL in action in an entire district that's been implementing UDL for over 10 years. So again, interesting and exciting to think of where Goodwin may be in 10 years. Oh my gosh. gosh. We also have from Cass Professional Publishing out this month, The Empowered Student, A Guide to Self-Regulated Learning by Nancy Weinstein and Mary Vicky Algery. So we definitely encourage you to check out we have these great skinny books that are coming out. And so one more coming out this month. Our AIM Center has a really exciting free online course called Making Everyday Curriculum Materials Accessible for All Learners. That's starting tomorrow, July 11th. We're looking for middle school teachers to help us design software for working with digital materials. So there's a link here called Sizzle. I love the name of that project, cisl.cas.org. And Amazon Prime Day is July 16th. So if you shop via smile.amazon.com and choose CAST, Amazon donates a little bit of our purchases to CAST at no cost to you. So if you're looking to order anything, just keep that in mind. And we would always like to hear from you. So please let us know what webinar conversations you want to have in the future, and any feedback that you want to share with us about this one is welcome. As next steps, we will take again a look at this resource document. You all please feel free to know it's there, to use it. There's a resource list from our Goodwin panelists that they've put together of some websites and some books that they recommend. Information on the conference is on there. So, and summaries from each of the different projects that the different professors brought to life based on their UDL cohort, the work that they were doing, the tweaking that they were doing. And I do just want to, I love this quote that Diana, you shared from Mark Gold, try another way. It's so simple.
All of our faculty have that t-shirt. All our fellows have the t-shirt.
So to the point. So thank you all so much. If you have any final words, please feel free to, to share, but I think those 3 words are pretty strong. And thank you all for participating today from the field, from all across the world. Very exciting to have you all. And let's keep having the conversation.
Thank you, Allison. We really appreciate the time and effort you put in to have this webinar, and we'll be happy to correspond with people that want additional information.
So Diana, Paula, Danielle, Randy, Kieasha, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
You too. Feedback is really good.
And so this is going to be, there's going to be a link that people
Yes.
can go and rehear.
Yes.
Replay.
Yes. As a matter of fact, a lot of people were asking while they were in this if